or even if the outcome is good, if I did not do what I think is right, it doesn't matter what the outcome was. It's not enough. A lot of times when we are confronted with challenges in our daily life, we're looking for some idea to resonate with us, to give us perspective. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of people hold on to these Stoic quotes, these quotes that Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca thought about, and not just Stoic authors, but all kinds of different authors. We have these ideas that are represented in a single line that when we're dealing with a particularly difficult thing in life, they allow us to gain some perspective, some much needed perspective. And these can take various forms. Obviously, the idea of strength and resilience, there's several quotes that reflect this idea. Tom Petty's I Won't Back Down is one that really resonates with me. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. And what you'll find as you progress through your journey through life, what you'll find is that you have an idea in your head that you're kind of mulling over. And a lot of this comes from your study of Stoicism and other philosophies. But then what you might end up with over months, years, maybe even decades, maybe over the course of your life is kind of like your own spin on things and something that resonates with you, this idea or a idea that can get you through some difficult things. Now, the Stoics have lots of these, right? Live according to nature. I mean, if you think about that, it's a very abstract idea, but it can really set things in, I guess, in accordance with you. There's the Meditations quote from Marcus Aurelius: waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. There's Epictetus: if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid, which is a reflection on humility. And I think for me, I've been honing in on this idea that is a very Stoic idea. I can't claim ownership over it, but it's a phrase that's solidified in my mind over the last 3 to 6 months, I suppose. And it really, for me, just brings me back to what the Stoics would say is a good mindset. And I'll read it for you. This is the line that I came to after months of reflection, and it is, I do what I think is right, and that's enough. I do what I think is right, and that's enough. And so, if you look at that line, we can break that down. In some sense, it's really simple. It is really simple. I do what I think is right. Whatever you think is right in this particular moment to do it. And as long as you're aligned with that, that's enough. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means to just be enough. But I think that is a line that can really resonate. I do what I think is right, and that's enough. And so let's talk about the Stoic principles that fit in there. Obviously, there's virtue. The idea that virtue is the only good. What we do is the only good. Not what anyone else does, not the outcomes of our actions, only what we do. Virtue is the only good. And the Stoics, really, the underlying lesson of that is that what truly matters, in fact, in many ways, the only thing that matters is doing what is right, not how others perceive it. It doesn't really matter how others perceive it. I did an episode a little while back on The Dark Knight, this idea that character and reputation are linked in some ways, but not always. And in some situations, you have these characters where They give up their reputation in order to uphold their character. So they're acting really virtuously. However, everyone thinks that they're not. They're willing to be the scapegoat. And that's kind of like the peak of the most difficult way to be a stoic, I suppose, is to be fundamentally stoic and then no one knows about it or no one appreciates it. But again, to the stoic, what truly matters is doing what is right and not how others perceive it. So it doesn't actually matter. Now, as I was searching around, I found this quote from Marcus Aurelius, of course, that I've heard before, but you tend to forget some of these quotes too, which is what makes it difficult when you're going through your daily life and you're trying to hold it a bit of wisdom. But Marcus Aurelius said in Meditation 6.2, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. And that's the same idea. This idea that I do what I think is right and that's enough. It's the same idea. And maybe his version hits you better. Maybe my version hits you better. Maybe you can come up with your own version of that. This slogan that you can call upon. That is the same idea fundamentally, but just seems to resonate with you. And so when we accept that virtue is the only good, what we're accepting is that external outcomes, other people's opinions, other people's actions, they don't really matter. What matters is your inner character and moral intentions. Are you intending to do good? Are you intending to be a good person? And obviously that ties deep into with the Stoic dichotomy of control, focusing on what is up to us and what is not. I do what I think is right. That's all I have control over, is doing what I think is right. Now I want to hone in on a word there, and that's think. Now, if I were a Stoic sage, I might say I do what I know is right, and that is enough. But I am not a Stoic sage. So I like including the idea that I think this is right. I think this is the right action. And that's enough. Because if your intentions are good, well, that's really the only thing. When you're imperfect, that's the only thing you can control, is whether or not your intentions are good. Because you could have good intentions and fail miserably. You could have good intentions and just completely balk up the whole situation, right? Everything could fall to pieces. Maybe because of your lack of wisdom. But I think including some humility in there, which, if I'm being honest, I think even a Stoic sage would. I do what I think is right, and that's enough. Hey there. Let me thank you for being a listener to this ad-free podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, there are a few things you can do to help me out. A 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this really does help, and it's free. You can also sign up for my Substack newsletter or Patreon. Substack free gets each episode emailed to you along with the transcripts in the form of an article. You'll also get access to my live talks, followed by a Q&A afterward. Substack Premium supporters and my patrons on Patreon get access to the recordings and a brief article of those Q&A sessions, access to full episodes of the Paradoxically Speaking podcast, my Steps to Success interview series, Stoic meditations, and much more. Links to Substack and Patreon can be found in the show notes. Now, there's one little part of this. I do. We talk sometimes on this podcast about how there's often a gap between what we know to be right or what we think to be right and what we actually act on. And this all feeds into just the imperfections of the human soul, right? We even if we knew what the ultimate good was, we're still going to fall short of it just because we're human beings and we make mistakes. None of us are really fully committed on that. Nevertheless, I like that because I do what I think is right. And that's enough. And perhaps the mirroring of that quote would be, I do not do what I think is right, and that is not enough. Or in other words, I did something that was not right, and that's not enough. What that means is that it doesn't matter, even if the outcome is good. If I did not do what I think is right, it doesn't matter what the outcome was. It's not enough. And so I really stress this point that a lot of times this idea of the dichotomy of control, people get so focused on what's not up to you that they fail to realize that the whole point of the dichotomy of control is to focus in on the things that you can control. And so you cannot simply ignore things that are not up to you without maximizing your agency. They're two sides of the same coin. You have to do both. And so if you want to accept that, it's simply enough to do what you think is right. You also have to accept that when you do not do what you think is right or what you know is right, that's not enough. You have to accept that when you fall from that standard, that's not enough. You're not willing to accept that from yourself. That doesn't mean you beat yourself up, but it means that you hold yourself to a standard. Period. The third little point here I'll make is one that I really stressed in a recent episode, which is just freedom from external validation. This idea that what we do is enough as long as we think it's right and everything else doesn't really matter. It really puts this perspective that, again, outcomes from a positive perspective don't matter either. Meaning if we do the right thing and someone praises us for it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. It's not valuable. Seeking praise or recognition, it makes you a slave to other people's opinions. And Epictetus talked a lot about this because he was, in fact, a slave. Seneca said, "You need not look around for the approval of others. Do what you ought to do, not what you think will please others. Do what you ought to do." And tied in with this is, again, to tie in last week's episode, courage to be oneself, courage to be disliked, courage to be shunned, courage to be excelled, courage to be happy, courage to be yourself. I do what I think is right, and that's enough. Meaning, if I am having the courage to live up to the Stoic virtues, to try, at least to try, then that is enough. So, this idea, I do what I think is right and that's enough. I think the first part I've really stressed. I do what I think is right. We know what that means. It's obvious in many senses. And when you dig into it, some of those words mean a lot. I think. I do what I think is right. I do what I think is right. And of course, when I say what is right, I'm meaning in the Stoic context of the word. So that in itself requires a lot of unpacking. But the last phrase there, and that's enough. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean for something to just be enough? It's inner peace. That's what it means for one's actions to simply be enough. It means I don't need anything else. I don't need praise. I don't need positive results. I don't need success. I don't need money. I don't need external validation. All I need is for me to live up to the virtues that I myself believe in. That's all I need. And anything other than that, I don't need it. It doesn't really matter. It means that if I am aiming up, I'm going to have inner peace. And the rest doesn't matter. We talk sometimes about this idea of being enough, which is a similar idea. Again, it's all tied in with this idea of having the courage to be yourself, having the courage to be enough. Well, if we're taking that quote and we're saying the courage to be enough, it means the courage to be yourself. And so I'm encouraging you, encouraging you. What does that mean? Encourage. I'm trying to give you courage. I'm encouraging you as you walk through your life, as you walk through your daily life, to just keep that idea really close to heart. That doing what is right is all you really need. Period. That you can go to sleep at night knowing that you did what you thought was right. Even if you were wrong, because if you were wrong, you just learn and you move forward. Even if you were praised for it and it resulted in a positive outcome and lots of success. Even if you did what you thought was right and everything fell apart. Everything fell apart. Your job, your house burned down. It doesn't matter. I'm encouraging you to keep this idea strong in your mind. That anything other than doing what you think is right, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't really matter.